was a rather prominent lawyer from the Bay Area wrote today and said, I've been kind of reading your stuff, feeling moved by what's happened in the past 48 hours. What else can I be doing? And my response to her, she said, can you write something and kind of tell people what to do? I think people are feeling a little bit powerless right now. And I said, I will do that. But the main thing is do what you do the way you do it. Just do it more and be as, if you're a writer, write. If you're a lawyer, go volunteer pro bono. Go help with legal assistance on this stuff.
Yeah.
If you're good at organizing, get out there and organize. Like, go do you in this moment, but just focused on making change and action because there's room for everybody and there's a lot that needs to be done.
I think that's the important part. I do think that a lot of people get caught up in the idea that everybody has to do everything the same way.
Right. Right.
And there's a lot of work that goes into having a protest go the way you want it to. And it takes people that are at home that can organize, that can put things together and make signs or whatever. Not everybody can go out every Saturday and stand in the street, but there's a lot of work that can be done on the other side of it. So
have you seen any of this, or what was your? I know.
oh yeah, I'll send you some pictures.
Okay, or just tell us about it. Walk us through some of what you're seeing.
So I got here yesterday. We went to the vigil visit, which was a march. It was like a 1.5 2-mile march.
Mm-hmm.
Around the Ocampo Square.
A lot of people?
Yeah, about 5,000 or 6,000.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Wow. And it was 31 degrees and raining, so it was a lot,
sign,
Yeah. So we did that, and then that ended up at the vigil site where the shooting took place. And then so they keep a 24-hour vigil there. And then they also keep a 24-hour presence at the ICE headquarters at the federal building there in Minneapolis, or here in Minneapolis. And that I went there today and kind of watched to see how that all was going. And there were like 5 counter protesters that came through. There's probably 150, 200 people, maybe a few more here and there, but they keep 24-hour presence there. And they've kind of, this is going to sound strange, Mike. There's a symbiosis almost to both sides where they've kind of got an understanding, like, if you do this and like you can be as loud and do your thing, and if you get out of the way and and there are those that push the limits and but that's certainly not
it self-polices a little bit.
Yeah. And there are people there who are very good at and making sure that people don't get out of line and that don't give people a reason to get hurt. And it's very interesting. Minnesota knows how to protest. It's a very
well. That was a mile away from the George Floyd murder, right?
It's 3 blocks.
3 blocks.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's just over there. Like it's.
What's the mood of the protesters? Is it somber? Is it angry? Is it quiet and rising? Is it like still waters runs deep?
It's very resolute. Like whatever happened in 2020 with the George Floyd thing, they feel like what they're going to do is they are very confident that their activism will win the day.
That's good.
That if it's attrition, then they'll come out on top of it. So I mean that's good. I mean they're confident, they are positive, optimistic about it. It's not a question of will this work? It's about how long they'll have to wait it out. And even that. Oh, go ahead.
No. I want to hear about what you're experiencing. You're there. Tell us.
And you can talk to these ICE agents that are sitting on that front line, and some of them are not super happy that they're making less than $50,000 a year, and they tell you like they'll just tell you what they're upset about if you are up at the front line talking to them.
Have you talked to any of them?
I've talked to a couple of them today.
I mean, and I hate to put it in this kind of parlance and terms, but we do make these comparisons in campaigns, and morale makes a big difference in the outcomes of things. And when you've got a very resolute people who are like 6,000 people out in the middle of 31-degree weather in Minneapolis in January, that's a sign of resolve. Just is.
Yeah, they mean it.
They
Uh,
mean it. Yeah.
yeah,
And when you've got, kind of the ICE agents themselves who know what public perception is. I mean, again, a nerd like me is looking at polling all day, and you look at some of the opinion polling on ICE broadly. Pollsters are starting to ask how you feel about it. The numbers have turned from positive a year ago, January, to very negative now. And let's be aware. I mean, this is not, and I hate to say this, but this is the inevitable result of the policies that the administration's pursuing. What did they think was going to happen?
yeah.
You're putting armed people on the street and roaming neighborhoods, hunting people. What do you think is going to happen? We're about to see a significant increase in the number of ICE agents on cities all over America. Like this is a deliberate policy choice, inevitable policy outcome.
Which is, I mean, we've found ourselves in a place in this country where not a lot of things make sense, even to those of us that can usually find the path, and say, oh, well, this is following this, or the money, is here. Um, some of it just feels, I don't know, an odd messaging thing, or they're just doubled down on it because it was popular 8 months ago. The idea of doing, and now I think we just have a loud minority of people. There were 5 counter protesters out there, and it is the same 5 people that counter protest all the time. They're called the Crusaders or something like that. And it's just this group of 5 people. One of them's running for Senate in Florida. He was a J6er that was pardoned. And they are just agitators and, are doing whatever it is that they do. They weren't treated especially well by the ICE agents on the other side. I mean, they weren't protected anymore, treated, allowed any different access or anything like that. I mean, it was so that there's not a lot of popularity. And I would imagine that probably affects if you're doing that job, but if you just took it for the money, that they're making less than $50,000 a year. That's probably a struggle in a lot of families. If that's the money, I mean, that's not. You're probably going to find yourself paycheck to paycheck pretty quickly, um, and you know, not making a lot of money and being very, very unhappy with the work you're doing is not going to be a good outcome.
And communities hating you, screaming at
I
you,
mean, hating you.
hating you.
Is-
And I don't care how resolved you are with that job. There have to be, even for the briefest moment, some reflection about what you're doing. Like even the most stalwart, true believing, committed person is kind of like going, someone just got shot in the face 3 times. Like these people, the neighbors are, calling us out on my basic humanity for good reason. Like, what am I doing here for this amount of money? It's not. It's like, what am I doing? Who am I? There's got to be that. I don't know how pervasive it is, but there's got to be some of that
I think that there are probably some ideologues in there
for
that
sure. Yeah.
I mean, that has to exist. Otherwise, you would have a mass breakdown. I think. I don't know anything about the guy that shot Renee Good, but other than what you've heard on the news, there's not. But that's not that whole situation and the way it unfolded is reckless at best. I mean, that if you were to say, oh, he acted recklessly as a law enforcement officer, that would be the best thing you could say about the situation. I don't think there's any way to defend the actions um, in any way that makes sense. Um, Especially not with the video evidence and things and kind of what's coming out about what she had been doing and, you know, I that and I think it points to the idea that I think some of these guys feel like they can just get away, the ideologue ones, you know, the ones that think that they have this immunity, because of the rhetoric,
from the
that's planted
president,
around
from
them.
the top
Yeah,
down.
and
Christy
it
Nome.
it seems like they do. I can't imagine a situation, even with police violence and stuff that have erupted, where the police officer involved was immediately defended without looking at anything. And I'm probably wrong. I'm sure that that has happened before, but I can't think of a time, where there wasn't, "We're gonna investigate this, and we're moving forward with, investigation before something comes out," to just flatly call this person a terrorist and, you know and I know around the George Floyd thing, there was a lot of allegations and stuff thrown around about drug use and whatever, but in this situation, it's just such a from the federal government. It's not a police chief that spoke too soon, or, a mayor that was trying to
Coming from the Oval
hold them
Office.
down. It's crazy. It's the to defend something that's indefensible, you know, gather some information first. Look at you can to support that decision by that officer seems it seems like a group that is not concerned with legality or optics anymore.
Do you think they genuinely believe it, or are they just like, "This is the spin, this is the message, we're gonna dig in on it and tell people not to believe their eyes"?
I think that part of them probably believed it immediately and then spoke too soon, and now they have to double down on it, if I'm being honest.
No, that's what we're
You
looking
know,
for. This
it's,
moment Well, go ahead.
I think it's easy for people to hear, "Oh, well, if you hadn't seen the video and your officer says, "Oh, well, she drove the car at us," and we've seen evidence, I guess, of similar things like that happening. I think you could frame it to someone that that's what happened, and they would say, "Oh, okay, well, that makes sense." But you would need to investigate first before you just made a wild statement about what happened. And I think they didn't. They just took that information, they made the branded her a terrorist, and now you have to figure out a way to make that rhetoric work instead of walking back or having any sort of nuance or perspective on the situation. Um, and that I don't know. It, I don't know, Mike. It's I don't know that anybody with any amount of sense, or eyes could look at that video and think that what happened was justified.
Yeah.
Like,
Something about this moment called you, Robert, to get up there, knowing you needed to feel it, see it, breathe it, document it. What w why w is this moment different?
it feels it does. I've got 3 kids, and there's that picture. I wrote a thing about it, and recorded it the other day. But there's a picture of her car and has these stuffed animals on the
Yeah.
on her thing. I've got that in my Jeep, man. Like I've got, um, and it's hard to look at that and then reconcile that with domestic terrorists, because we've seen video and pictures of terrorist cells and what those homes look like, even the ones that have children in them, and there are the trappings of domestic or not, but there are bombs and literature, and they're all the things that you would associate with that, and we see that. We've uh, post 9/11 taught us a lot of things about what those holes of humanity look like, and it's just not that, man. It's just not that. Um, it is. It's a mom that thought that she was, and there's going to be debate forever over what she was doing there. Um, but even if she was,
Nothing justifies what happened.
no, my God,
It just
no.
doesn't.
And then as an administration to try to justify, her losing her life in that moment, it just feels, 1, wildly reckless, and 2, just irresponsible. Um,
And then for the feds to say they're gonna be in charge of the investigation, right?
yeah, and cut out, if anything tells you that they are going to do everything they can to control that narrative, it's them saying that we're gonna control the investigation.
Yeah. It's everything.
Um, they're not gonna work with Minneapolis or Minnesota on it. Um, yeah, it's just a bad deal all the way around. Um, so I felt like it was necessary to see what this was gonna be like, and what it's hard to get a feel for the way people are reacting until you see it. You know, you can watch on the news, you don't get a feel for it. You know, we saw Portland, and, and that response to it, to ICE, and the shutdowns and the curfews and the National Guard coming in, but you don't really feel it. You know, you don't know what it's like. And this was gonna be a big deal, and I thought, "I just wanna see it." Um, so here we are.
I'm glad you're there. What do you I mean, have you how are you thinking about it? And again, I don't want you to you're obviously gonna be writing the next couple days about it and elevating some of that sentiment, but, I mean, do you have a sense of it yet, or is it just still too overwhelming at the moment on how to approach where what this is what this moment means?
The response, gosh, the response to it, it felt like the people of Minnesota look at this as their responsibility as the citizens of the state,
Mm,
right? And they put together days of events within hours. Like, it went from this thing happened, it's almost as if they're firemen. It would be the bell is rung and we're off to work, and they just knew what they were supposed to do. And so there is this very real feeling of organized protest and demonstration. There are events for the next foreseeable future. Every day, there are 4 or 5 things that have been set up by either Indivisible, 5051, um, the uh, Democrat Socialist Party, all of them, but they all work together.
tour
They're not,
force.
there's no infighting or anything. Um, people, this thing that struck me the most is we're walking down the street, and people in the organizations knew that when we got to the crosswalk, they would go stand, uh, block traffic, and not block traffic in a sense of causing mayhem or havoc. They just stood at the crosswalk, and no one that was driving was upset about it. It was just part of the deal. Most people got out of their cars and would cheer and video, and there was no negativity whatsoever. Um, so it all feels very inevitable. I don't know. It natural. I don't really know how to put it yet. Um, I mean, I will obviously spend a lot of time trying to figure out the right words and how to put it together, but
I ask only because I think we're all feeling that way, and a lot of times we look
yeah,
to you for the words. That's a little bit unfair, I know, but we
no,
do.
it's, and I've hopefully I'm growing into it and getting a little better with it. There is something to it, and I will find the words over the next couple of days, hopefully, to put it together. But there is, if they could, if everyone in the United States could bottle what happens in Minneapolis and send it out, this would be over in 2 weeks.
The resolve.
Yeah,
That's really good to hear back. To hear that on the ground.
yeah.
My fear was there would be despair and despondence and fatigue, and I wrote a little bit about that because it's like there's a certain not surprised it happened, right? But heartbroken again. and then watching the right wing spin doing what it's doing, the Megyn Kellys, the JD Vances, and just going, man, how much more? But it does something did feel different about this, where it's like, and I think it's because the contrast between good and evil, and those aren't words I throw around very lightly. They're not. And I don't know, evil may be too, it may not be the right word, but when when a 37-year-old mother of 3 is gunned down in her car, and the more that comes out with her, waving the cars around her, the language saying, "I'm not mad at you," it's a Honda Pilot. Like, all of it is just so, um, emblematic of everybody waking up on a cold wintry morning and trying to get your kids going.
Yeah.
And you've got, your little bean bags and fluffy animals, and there's an empty container of whatever you're drinking yesterday. That's all of us, man. That's just
Yeah.
life. That's just getting through the day. And and then I was, I had to write because I know what these guys are gonna do. They're gonna try and trash her. And it's just the president of the United States to have somebody like that killed at the hands of her own government, and then to be attacked again by your president, and then your vice president just attacking you. It's like, what strange force is this? Couldn't conjure this up out of the lowest levels of, that's just,
Well, Mike, you and I both work in sectors that require some amount of understanding that messaging is important, right?
yeah.
So politics, it's all, hey, this thing happened. The inevitable result is going to be this. Uh, and you weigh, do you own this and apologize and like try to figure it out from that direction? Or do you double down on the situation? And a lot of times it's weighed based on outcome. Like, what is going to be the optics of it? How is this going to be perceived? How do we move forward from it? And instead, I feel like everything this administration does, when they have an opportunity to do something where they could actually, and I'll use Venezuela as a little bit of an example. You could have gone in there and not dropped a bomb or anything. You could have gone and gotten the guy. That was your goal, right? You could have gone in and gotten him. And then whenever you'd done that, said, "We did this thing. We did it without firing a shot." And then even your critics don't have anything to say. They don't have a really good, and you can still argue that, well, a sovereign nation shouldn't go in after, the leader of a sovereign that would always still exist. But doing it with some amount of reserve, I think if you're gonna do it anyway, plays better to both sides. Um, Throwing that guy who fired the shot as the worst example of what you're trying to do and saying, like, "This is not what we're here to do.
Right.
This guy was absolutely in the wrong, and we are going to make sure that when we're in our community, like, this is not going to happen again." It's an easy message, and to double down that person was that the young lady that got killed was in the wrong, and just to keep doubling down on that, it just seems absurd to me.
And I don't know that it's working in this instance. I think
No, it's so bad.
it's so bad. I mean, the normal times and the before times, you look for the president to have calming words to calm a nation, on the verge of exploding. This guy's like, bring more gas. Let's throw as much on it as we can. Let's just make this thing explode. And then you got to question, is that intentional? Is that just his bad instinct? And there's clearly a wide swath of Americans that are cheering that on and are excited by it. But I think this I think that the fatigue of this is real with Americans who are just kind of like it's too much. It's turning violent now, right? I mean, I know that sounds
Yeah.
Pollyannish, but it's not just his words. It's not just the violence and vulgarity of his words. Americans are dying now, and it's a U.S. citizen. It's a mother of three. It's I just think that something, and I don't know how big the switches that went off, even if it's 4 or 5% of people who are just like, "Okay, I got it. I'm tapping out. I'm done. I've been in denial. I wasn't gonna I was believing Fox News up until this point." Like, something on this one, I think just is like, "Enough. This guy's just bad." Even if I agree with him on some stuff, he's just this ends bad for everybody if we keep going down this road.
Mike, do you think they're polling? Like, do you think they're getting real information anymore at the top? I mean, I know that I feel like for a while they haven't been telling Trump exactly where he's at, like, because that man confidently says things that I think even if you knew that you were that far into like you wouldn't say some of the stuff he says. So I do think he gets kind of a revised version of most things. But do you think the rest of them are starting to do the same thing? Where they're just not they don't care anymore, or there's
No, there's no doubt because there's so many resources. They are polling. They're looking at polling constantly. It's called rolling is what is the way we do it in campaigns, which is this is gonna sound a little bit nerdy, but probably a lot of nerds on the phone. Like in the last 45 days of a campaign, a big campaign, you poll 300 people on a Monday, then on a Tuesday you pull another 300, and then you pull another on Wednesday, and that gives you your first full look with a 900 sample. And then on Thursday, you pull another 300 and you drop the first 300. Does that make sense?
yeah.
So you're adding a new, and the reason we do that, we call it tracking. And that tracking survey shows you how public opinion is actually moving. An administration like this is doing that constantly. So whether they want them to polling or not, there's enough people in the political shop to be now whether that gets to him or not, and I think it probably does very selectively,
Mhm.
but I also, the remarkable thing about this person in the presidency is the capacity for self-denial is just infinite. He just he I think he genuinely believes most of what he says because he's been able to delude himself as a survival technique, as a survival mechanism through whatever traumas we are now all suffering because of. He's just George Conway, my friend, would say it's malignant narcissism. He's literally not capable, clinically capable of thinking of other people. It's all about him because the world is his perception, which is very dangerous, as you might imagine, right? Because all of this only ends or doesn't end with the way what works for him. So I think he probably looks at polling and genuinely dismisses it and says, "Oh, that's not what's going on." Like when he can go in front of the cameras and say lie about it, he genuinely believes it. Like he's just that he has the capacity to delude himself that much. And I think that certainty gives his base voters this undying belief where despite evidence, despite facts, despite science, they will listen to him. And once you turn that over to somebody, you don't bring it back. Even if you're on a down streak, it's a temporary situation until because he keeps telling us that, right?
Right.
Like we're winning. Things aren't bad. This is the economy is Biden's economy, and it's really even not bad. It's actually quite good. It's one of the best economies we've ever had. Like believes it. And I think like his capacity to delude himself clinically has transferred to his followers, which just will blindly say whatever he says goes. Whatever he says is truth, which is why, kind of with the Venezuela thing, that's our policy now is, and he said it, right? It's my own morality is the only constraint that we have. It's not Congress in a technical sense. It's not public opinion or even national interest. It's what I say it is, which is somebody who's wants to take over the world essentially. Like this is what I want it to be. And that, like I said, that is the frame of mind of the man that is the leader of the world, essentially. And that's a horrifying thought. But I also would say too, keep in mind that's an extraordinary weakness, too.
Right.
Right. And that is the way I think that people haven't looked at this objectively and said, that's where you have to beat this guy once it moves from Venezuela to, and I think this will happen. He will bomb select targets in, Sinaloa, in Sonora, in Mexico, and say, what are you going to do about it? Like, right? And Greenland. I think that's very real in his mind. Is we should have Greenland. And if they won't sell it, what are the deal is we'll give every Greenlander $100,000 if you come with us. Like once that doesn't work, you know, I don't know. I mean, a lot of these things that were unspeakable, a year ago, 5 months ago, a month ago, a week ago, are now very real considerations, and the rest of the world is behaving that way.
I do think that there's no Greenlander that would accept that would believe him. Like, they'll say, "I'll give you $100,000." Nobody can believe that shit, right? Like, that's,
That's a
uh,
good point. That's a good point.
and I think you would probably have a lot of base supporters that would say, "What the f like, you're
What are
gonna
you
give
doing?
you're gonna give other people $100,000? Like, we can't. We're taking out GoFundMe campaigns for groceries, and you're giving, uh, don't tell me we can't afford to do SNAP and stuff in our and you're giving $100,000 per." I don't think that will go well, but I also don't think Greenlanders are even remotely interested.
I don't think they are either, but I don't know that, what happens if we do start to invade, essentially, for lack of a better word. I don't think it's gonna be a landing the way it was in Caracas, but I do think that we will there's a very real possibility we show up with a bunch of ships and soldiers and start, looking at US corporations and corporate holdings and our military bases starts to beef up there. And then what are they gonna do? Like, does NATO roll on us? And what does that look like? And what does that mean? And then, what is the Churchillian or the I'm pausing because I can't believe these words are kind of coming from my mouth. Who do they remember Never Chamberlain appeasing the dictator last time and say we've got to hold the line in Greenland, or do we listen to this guy and negotiate? Because like Putin in Crimea, if you think he's done with Greenland, you're fooling yourself.
No. Um, and it's interesting to me because I don't think of Trump as an imperialist in the sense of wanting to preside over more territory. I mean, it's a resources downstream situation. I mean, that's what they want to do. And with Venezuela, I really thought it was exit positioning, just making sure that they had tangible assets, um, prepared for the collapse of the administration. And that's probably the same thing in Greenland, because they'll never get another opportunity to set those kinds of things up for themselves. But the boldness of it, like, he's just gonna, and I don't know, I don't even know what that, I'm with you, Mike. I don't even know what that looks like. How you, because we are not supposed to even talk about, like, that's not even something that I would have ever considered. We're gonna take Greenland? Um,
By force.
and, you know, again, Denmark you can play the the dictator card in Venezuela and say, and you might be able to get some people on board, but how do you paint going against an ally. I mean, Denmark. That's that's interesting. And at what point does somebody? I mean, if Mexico decides they want Puerto Rico or the Virgin Islands, I mean, what or Alaska? I mean, what is it? Is it
That's
all up for
yeah,
debate at this point?
yeah, and that's, I think, the danger of the moment is, like, the whole architecture of the whole notion of sovereignty, in large part, was beefed up as a function of the end of the, world wars. Is you can't just roll on if you're Hitler and you want, Poland, you can't just go take it. Like, you
Right.
can't do that. Like, the world community says, "No, you can't do that." And I think in hindsight, the one thing that has happened that no one ever imagined could possibly happen is the United States is basically the United States basically is NATO. I mean, let's be honest about it.
Sure.
So, if we got into a conflict with NATO, really? Like, Article 5, we are the safety architecture of Europe. That's what NATO is. That's, the veneer we put on the bubble we put over Europe was basically like, if the Soviet Union wanted to move on Europe, that means we're going to war with the United States. That's what NATO is. Nobody ever expected that, it would be the United States moving on Europe.
Right.
And so, they deferred all of that infrastructure to
Well,
us.
I don't think that it would be I mean, it's obviously not going to be a military force that's going to be the undoing. It's the economic structure, right? I mean, if you
Squeeze them.
move on, NATO, then they just pull out economically. And there will be some strain, but China can fill that gap. Not
China,
as
and they already
well,
are. Yeah,
right? I mean, they're setting
yeah.
that. I mean, they're Belt and Road is nearing completion. The supply chains through Southeast Asia. I mean, it's becoming less that isolationism that the MAGA is trying to set up. Well, one, isolationism's never worked for the United States, but it's even worse now because we're a consumer nation, you know, and we can't produce that stuff. We just can't. And so if there are and I don't want to say sanctions, but if there are embargoes on trade because of a military action, I mean that is costly. Um,
Yeah.
and then you're looking to get everything from Israeli back channels, Argentinian back channels. That's not a good place to be in. Um,
No, and even if you try to, decouple your supply chains and your manufacturing routes to Mexico while you're bombing them, like,
yeah,
what are we doing? Canada, right? The Economist ran an article saying Canada's, basically militias lining up. They're preparing for a a border protection program if the United States were to invade Canada. It's like a John Candy movie. Like, what are we doing?
that's and maybe that's part of maybe it's the inevitability, or they're looking at the inevitability of not having those allies in Europe and that trade agreement with Europe. I don't, but Mexico is not going to go down. Either. They're not laying down. Canada's not going to lay down.
Well, and remember I mean, Venezuela is one thing. It's basically a failed state already. And remember, we decapitated the president, but the same regime is in place.
Absolutely.
Right. You can occupy Greenland, but you can't occupy Canada. You can't occupy Mexico. I mean, these are massive countries where we're already starting to see massive domestic opposition in the United States against what's going on. What the hell do they think is going to happen as people around the world start to unite?
Well, I also think that there is a very loud minority of MAGA. Like, I don't think that that translates to elections. And I know there are people who say, like, well, he's going to do away with elections, but you can't do away with state elections. I mean, those are going to happen. So, I mean, the only ones he can really control are the red states anyway. So, I mean, that's not. if he could even do that. People like to vote. Like, nobody's gonna like to be told, "Hey, we're gonna suspend elections." Even hardline conservatives aren't gonna go for that shit. So I think that there is some there's hope in that part of it. Um, Invading another country in our own hemisphere, I think is a bridge too far for 90% of Americans. Even a lot I mean, there's gonna be the loyalists, they're gonna go with whatever he says, and, yeah, we should have Canada or whatever. It's one thing to say, it's another thing to put your children at the Canadian border against another modern military, and you can sell a war against people half a world away that you can paint religious differences between and all, like, you can but you're gonna you're gonna try to frame a war against people that sound like you and look like you and are mostly worship like you, and that's
For no reason.
for no reason. That doesn't you can't sell that. Um,
So is there a strategy or is this just basic incompetence?
I think I think the strategies are off the rails. I think 2025 Project 2025 is over, and we saw that with the national security strategy. It is not following the Project 2025 roadmap anymore. With the split at Heritage Foundation and Pence's org picking up half of their attorneys and uh, most of their most of their accounting team and their policy writers, um, the true structure of Project 2025 is kind of leaving or is not being followed anymore. I I think that what we have is a lot of people who are not good at their job. People we would You've worked with people with a lot on their resume before,
Of course.
and so people are too afraid to ask for help because asking for help makes them look like they don't know what they're doing, but they obviously don't know what they're doing, so they're just kind of making it up. And they're versed enough in the jargon and in the idea of the job that they've almost convinced themselves that they're good at it. But if you think Pete Hegseth is a qualified Secretary of Defense, you're out of your fucking mind.
Correct.
If you think that Pam Bondi is a qualified
Attorney General.
AG, I mean, that's absurd. She wasn't qualified to be a Florida Attorney General, other than she has a law degree. I mean, it. Kash Patel not qualified to be the director of the FBI. Um,
RFK.
oh my god, all these people have no qualifications. Um, they're put in these places and they don't know what they're doing. They've gotten rid of all the institutional knowledge. Um, and s- and so they're making it up as they go, and they're doing a very, very poor job of it. Um, I so I don't think there's a strategy. I think they are piecing it together, and Stephen Miller's on television talking about saying that, oh, well, we live in a world that's defined by strength, and like that's not what we said. That's not what you said 6 months ago. It's all about quiet power and quiet strength. Now it's not about that anymore. Now we live in a world where you have to flex your muscles all the time to get what you want. You can't even. I don't know how the party loyalists keep up with the talking points anymore. I don't know how Carolyn Levitt gets up there and makes the statements anymore. Marco Rubio, and I don't like Rubio, but is the only person I did think had any sense. Um, and now after the situation with Venezuela and his rhetoric after that, I don't think even he um, is is thinking through anything anymore. I did think that I didn't agree with his politics, but I did think he was at least a traditional conservative politician still at his roots, which that had some sort of respect for
The values of what the American
something,
idea was.
something, and that's been proven to be false at this point. So nobody is really serious anymore. I don't know. Like, it's the Venezuela situation feels like it feels like a horse by committee. Like, it's a bunch of people making a lot of decisions. I think it's all pushed by big money. You know, they need the regime to stay in place so that they can get these contracts signed because Machado's probably not going to allow the same things um, that Rodriguez will. Um, they need to get downstream control of the rare earth assets. They need the sit go auction. They need the sit go closure to go through. And all of that has to be done by the people that are currently in charge because elections and regime change in the middle of that is
Too much of a variable.
too much chaos.
Do you think it's the American taxpayer that will rebuild the Venezuelan infrastructure?
Oh, yeah.
It ain't gonna be the oil companies. We're gonna do it.
No, and we're going to pay it to Halliburton for them to fix those oil rails that we blew up, and they'll make a fucking mint. We will, the American taxpayer will fund the entire thing. We'll get no benefit from it, because none of that's coming back.
None of that's coming back.
Um,
Agree
and
100%.
it'll be to the tune of $200 billion. If we're lucky, we'll get away that cheap. It'll all be subsidized. Private equity will make a fortune. And it's all out of the reach of American regulation after that. So they're just set up because, if Democrats come in and re-regulate the Texas oil industry and coal and stuff, they're going to lose money. Now they don't have to worry about it anymore.
I don't. I mean, that's right. When I were told we began the conversation with fatigue, like maybe I'm glad there's resolve in Minneapolis because I'm tired, brother. I'm hopeful. By the way, I am. I am. I remain hopeful. But I just at this point, like there's so many fronts, and I I do also see like the rest of the world realizing this guy's seriously out of control now. Domestically too, by the way.
Yeah.
I do think something clicked, and the fact that these 2 events happened within, 48 hours of one another was very telling. The first message I took was the idea, even the veneer of values driving policy, which we've at least told ourselves we can debate whether it actually did or didn't for, since the end of the Second World War. American values, right? It's right that makes might. It's our strength was in our values. We're not. I mean, that's not even that does Trump doesn't even enter the conversation. Never once said this is going to be better for the Venezuelan people. Like not even trying. It's about oil. Like he just kept saying, "So we want their oil, we want their stuff." And then to see the response when an ICE officer murders a woman in cold blood, and is defended immediately. Like it's not about saying we're trying to do the right thing. We're going to have an investigation. Like they're not trying to even pretend. They're just basically saying we've got guns on the streets of Minneapolis, and we've got bigger guns in the streets of Caracas. What are you gonna do about it?
And and then Stephen Miller tells us exactly what the way they feel about it is that we live in a world that is controlled by force. And if that doesn't tell you everything about their plan to, um, th- if that's your foreign policy, it is a failed. I mean, there.
It's not even medieval foreign policy. It's like Cro-Magnon foreign policy. It's like who
Yeah.
who can wield the biggest club, right? It's not even an attempt at civilization.
Well,
I mean, right? Tell
it,
me I'm wrong.
I mean, you're absolutely right. it's, it's gosh, I don't even know what to compare it to,
Yeah, no.
because it is I part of me thinks that it's a group of people that's so far out of touch with, the people they seek to have dominion over, that maybe they just think that this is what people want or something, I don't know. But that can't possibly I mean, you cannot think that you are so popular, right? That these ideas are so popular that, that people just want you to if your plan was that popular, you wouldn't have to use executive orders, and the best thing this is not a situation of the population of the United States needing to, like, have like, this is gonna be a little bit tough, but, like, this is gonna have long-term positive effect, and we have to, like, understand that it's everything they do is so unpopular that they have to force it down our throats and then convince this very loud minority to, like, cheer for it. And I don't know how that's even playing anymore. I don't. The even to the loyalists, like, I don't know how this continues to play. That it, um, it's got to be the most unpopular administration. I would think. I don't know, Mike, maybe you can tell me differently, but it
Here's
cannot be.
well, let me say this. There's three pieces of evidence I look at, one of which I just got today from you. But the first is the polling, which is the stuff that I look at, right? Is it a historic low for this guy? I mean, it's as bad as any president has ever been at. One. Two, the off-year elections of last year showed that as bad as the polls were, it wasn't picking up how bad it was. Like, they were
Yeah.
worse on the ground. The science, the polling instruments were not picking up how bad it is for him. So, okay, so, we've dealt with some of that stuff before as professionals, but the third, like, when we started this talk and you're like, "It's 31 degrees. 6,000 people showed up in the dead of night
And walk 2
to
miles.
walk 2 miles." Like, those we always look for signs of intensity, but usually in a normal world, we're like, "How many yard signs are in a neighborhood?" Like, that's a sign of intensity. That what you're talking about is and the resolve that you're unprompted, you just offered, that's how people are feeling, resolved. Like, that's significant. That is really significant. And then to see other, events pop up in New York City, Ventura County, where I'm from, popped up. Like, people are like, what am I going to do? All we can do is take to the streets at this moment, wrap up, bundle up, layer. We're going to go out for a few hours. And I think you're probably going to see some of that this weekend, some more of it. And I think those are all signs of intensity. And like I was saying, the biggest question in my mind as a political professional is, are people still feeling resolute, or are they feeling defeated and fatigued? And that's where I really thought people were at, for no reason other than I think I was exasperated a little bit. But the polling, the election results, and what you're seeing eyes on the ground in Minneapolis right now is not that.
I think that if this hadn't happened, and I don't wanna I never try to paint something good out of a bad situation, so it's not what I'm trying to do here. I think that the mistake that was made here by the administration beyond the incident itself was, if people were fatigued, you just lit a fire, um, because whatever did feel like fatigue, and we keep fighting the same things, you've just given them a rallying point, um, and you've reintroduced oxygen to the fire. So, and I don't think it's one that's likely to go out very soon, if I'm being honest,
That tells
because
me a lot.
now because now we're rolling downhill into midterms, and people are gonna start to see the traction as these polls start to come out, and every time every time a Republican loses ground and another candidate picks up ground in a polling, that result is just going to harden. Um, and we are running. You have you have primaries that are going to start taking place in March. You're going to have some special elections. There's a couple I would look at in Arkansas. They're that are House seats, like state level seats, but they're going to be around Sarah Sanders and some Trump endorsed people that are in that special election in Arkansas 70, um, where the prison thing is going, and it is a race to see which Republican is more against Sarah Huckabee's prison plan, and so I think that is going to be very important because the Democrat that's running against both of them is very. I mean, it is. It's going to be a. It's going to be down to the wire. It's going to be a photo finish on that one. So I think
Mm.
that's going to be important, and that's coming up in the next 3 or 4 weeks. And then these primaries, as we start to see which candidates are going to emerge from the primaries, so we can actually get head-to-head polling, it's going to be something. And I think that will just continue to strengthen that resolve, especially if we start to see 10-point swings in some of these districts and states.
What,
Texas, I mean, if
what,
you see Tallarico against Cornyn in March and it looks really, really strong, that's going to be huge.
that's huge. That cuts the head off the snake. You get Texas.
Uh, there's
And I, I've always been, just from a data perspective, the biggest skeptic about it. But you've got Tallarico, who's, again, depending on who gets out of that primary, but you could have a very strong candidate coming out of that primary, and you could have a very weakened. The negatives on both Paxton and Cornyn are significant.
Mhm.
Trump is his numbers. The numbers came out of Texas. I don't want to overspeak today, but I'll look it up during our conversation. But his numbers in Texas, it's not good, man. And like I said, I don't know that we've got an instrument right now that is picking up the intensity on the ground with the Democratic base. I just don't think that we are. I don't think we are. And
I don't.
that nothing else explains Virginia, New Jersey, the margins. Nothing explains Miami's. You remember we talked about this too, and I said keep your eye on Miami's mayoral race. If that thing breaks in a
Yeah.
weird, funky way, then I'll Katie bar the door. There's something's happening. That's what happened, man. Like you had Latino male Cuban Republicans defecting from a Latino male Cuban Republican running for mayor to vote for a white Democratic woman. And, that's telling you something that our polling instruments aren't picking up. So
Well, I think that Republicans, one, typically respond to polls more often. Um, and so I think that you do get a little bit of Republican skew on some of that polling. And I think while it did look in the toilet, I don't think it picked up. I, and I am going to be very interested to see the exit on a lot of this to see which of these groups really picked up. I think that we are going to see young Latino male voters turning out in numbers that are. Um, I mean, I would say that that's probably going to turn like a 25-30% turnout, where typically, it's been 5, 6, 7%. Because I think we have some real issues that are very, very important to that block. And you probably, I mean, you're going to be a lot closer to that than I am, but that's what I'm seeing. Or as we start talking about work and immigration reform and the way immigration reform needs to look, and it doesn't need to be, uh, we need a system that actually works for putting a path to citizenship and not just um, trying to keep putting Band-Aids on things and extending things out. It's so those are going to be important issues, and I think that those lower voter block turnouts are really going to shift the elections. Blue
yeah,
mostly,
or entirely.
yeah.
I mean, like I said, in 2025, there were no good signs for Republicans. There's no silver lining. I mean, I've never seen an election like that. I'm old enough to I remember the 1994 cycle when Republicans had a massive year. Gingrich just swept into power, the South realigned, and it there was still some bright spots for Democrats. There was nothing in 2025 that you could point to and say, "Oh, well, see, there's somebody who did it different. There's somebody who pulled out a squeaker or somebody who had a different message." There was nothing. And look, we're a long way out. The midterm season is upon us. Like the cycle has begun now. The corner has been turned, and now all the fundamentals of this race starts to matter. And I don't think the country gets better. I don't see the economic numbers that came out today were not good.
Mm-mm.
Right? They're not good. It's and also the headwinds are that it's going to get worse.
They're not only not good, they are bad, and they are bad in a they are bad in an administration that is lying about the numbers.
Right. 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 Right.
So, um,
Right. The lies are even bad.
uh, so as an economist, if I'm looking at that, I'm saying, I know they're not telling me that. Like, I know that these are skewed 5-7% off minimum, because that's about all you could really get away with fooling people on. So if we're I mean, it is bad. Um, they're gonna point to the stock market because they always do. And GDP, it's hard to stop the train of the United States economy, right? Like it is hard to the momentum itself will keep 3 to 4 quarters of GDP growth most of the time. The fact that Trump had a bad first half is an outlier. I mean, I'm very surprised we had negative growth. I thought it would just be low growth. So for him to have negative growth, and that was surprising to me even. But uh, just the momentum that the economy has typically is hard to slow down, and or to see right away. So to see that we've got bad growth, or at least what I would say is inflated growth, I don't think it's actual. I don't think those numbers are good. I think that I think they're being very selective and splitting their metrics is what I think they're doing. I think they're using some PCE and PCI and then, using the best versions of both of that to kind of get their GDP number, and their inflation numbers. But we can talk about that later though.
Yeah.
But um,
How long you be in town there? How long you be there for?
I'm going to be here till Sunday morning. Um,
Okay.
uh,
Are
and
you gonna
then
write a couple of pieces, do you think, or like one piece, or you don't know yet?
I've got one. I really want to get something out today, or get something on paper today, and I'll send it to you and let you take a look at it. That kind of talks about, kind of we talked about earlier, that resolve of, the fact that we do have people in the cold, in the rain, and it's not 25 people; it's
I was
5 or 6 thousand people.
That's when you said that, I was like, "Wait, what?" Like, that is an indicator I've never seen in this country. That's a big deal.
Oh, it's substantial, and I think that, like I said, it is one of those things that I think rolls into the next thing, and that resolve just stiffens going into November. Um, and MAGA's done the thing where MAGA doesn't have a message anymore. They don't have a strategy. They don't have a plan. Um, they don't even have an identity really anymore, do they, Mike?
It's just Trump. Like I said, there will be it's I did some writing on this about a year ago. It's like, how does the cult end? How do the cults break up? Because it is a personality cult. I mean, you can say whatever you want. I mean, I'm sure people will say, "Oh, you're overstating it." I don't believe for a moment that I am. Like their faith is in him. He alone can fix it. He's their champion. In their mind, they're looking at it as this guy always wins. He always owns the libs. He always beats the Democrats. Um, so I think it ends very similarly to that. I think that you are going to start seeing cracks in the coalition now. I think people are going to wise up. Then you get into the age old debate, which I know I've been having for many, many years. Was where George Conway and God bless him. He's been much more understanding and accommodating to folks. I hold grudges. I'm trying to work on that, but I do. I
I
still
think
have.
that's all right. Hold
What was
on to
that?
him, Mike. Hold on to him, Mike. It'll be all right.
Man, there's just Robert. And maybe I need you to talk some sense to me. Like, there's a lot of these, big people with followings and stuff that are kind of at the forefront of the fight, who are people working for ICE, who are people working in communications for Trump, who
Yeah.
are people, these Trumpers that, left, only after he lost election. I don't have I have a soft spot in my heart for those that show genuine contrition. When you say, "I'm sorry for what I've done," I will absolutely have the grace to forgive you. Anybody, by the way. I don't believe any human being is beyond redemption, including Donald Trump. I believe every human being is capable of it if you're genuinely contrite. But a lot of these people will apologize for everything except for their complicitness in this. And I struggle with it, Robert. I think about it every day. I say a prayer when I start getting really pissed off about it, because it's like, you can't move forward with holding on to this. You need everybody in the fight. But boy, that's been the biggest lesson, the biggest struggle for me over these years, is going, these people woke up every day and got a paycheck to implement this vision when my family was being threatened, when my life, my business was attacked and destroyed, and I was just doing nothing but the right thing. And to watch, like, how our culture allows people to just pivot one day, wake up and change, and suddenly you got this big TV contract, and we start giving you awards for courage. And it's like, 3 months ago, you were lying about the election,
Right. I mean,
And I don't I guess I gotta, dig a deeper well inside of me. I can't get there yet, brother. I can't.
well, I'm gonna be real honest with you, Mike. If you're looking to me, for help on how to not hold that grudge, I'm the wrong one to look for.
Okay, well, I feel better.
Um, uh, I I think that there are those that really do mean it, and I think there's those that are just an opportunist on the other side. But
And that's it's all opportunism. Like, who is the one, Stephanie Spencer, is that her name? She's an Arkansas, from Arkansas, I think.
Mhm.
She was a press secretary, and she said, "You know what? I'm wholly sorry. I will not take a contract. I'm not gonna take a book deal. I'm not gonna profit off of what I did. What I did was wrong." And I'm like,
Yeah,
I can forgive that. I can forgive that. If you're out there, asking people to pay for your subscriptions to talk about how virtuous you were after you were overseeing all this horribleness in the first administration, like, why are we rewarding that? I'm not saying there isn't room for forgiveness and grace. There is, but you're not a hero, man. You're not a champion. You were the one lighting the fire, and now you're saying you're the arsonist here. You lit the damn fires.
I can't get on board with anyone that supported the idea that the election was stolen, even for a limited amount of time. That's right. That may be my hard line on it, Mike.
Yeah.
I, I that to me is someone taking the final steps of trying to secure their own position and whatever, holding on to whatever power they could at the detriment of the nation, instead of saying, "Well, we lost this one. Let's figure out how to win it next time." Um, and yes, that's an unforgivable for me.
But yeah, or that J6 was a peaceful protest. I can't. I can't do that. I mean, these were vile acts against, they're treason, they're sedition, they're attacks against the, anyway, yes. I don't wanna get all too hopped up. Um, what else are you thinking about, my brother?
Mostly, it's been a lot of the stuff in Minneapolis. Obviously, is at the forefront right now. The Venezuela Greenland situation. Of course, I mean had- the way we're positioning ourselves against China. The how that's gonna go. I mean, they're gonna make a play at Taiwan. I feel as soon as they think that there's an opportunity for it there. Um, there my fear is that we are in a race to control, right? And I think the only way it really turns around, and I hate to say this, and you and I've talked about it, unless we get some House members that resign, in the next month or two, that just finally say, "All right, to hell with it, I'm gonna get out of this," and we can know that, you know, um, then we get some Democrats, or not we get people that will vote against this. And again, I don't want to say it's just going to be all Democrats. There may be a Republican out there that'll, you know, Thomas Massey type, whatever it takes at this point. Um, if we can get that by summer, and we can really turn this, at least put the brakes on it. Like, I know we're not turning it around, but if we can get the sales down and just the brakes on it, um, I think we got a shot. Otherwise, it's going to be a race to November, and hopefully, you have a few Republicans. If we don't have some changes, that will start to flex their, um, whatever muscle they have, to see that this is not going to play well for them in any sort of reelection situation. Um,
What do you think of the state of the Democratic Party early 26 heading into the election battlefield?
that's a broader question than you probably meant to ask.
What comes to mind immediately?
You know, the DNC is very unpopular right now. Um, we've talked about that. It's not a secret. They have lost the rural vote. They've lost the working class vote for the most part. I think what happens in Democrat candidates is they start to assert themselves with their own sort of platforms and ideology that conform to their voting base. I think it's not going to be. I think a lot of times we try to say cohesive message across the board. I think maybe that's not the play anymore, especially maybe not in this cycle. It will be on in 28, but I
Right.
think for Senate and House, there's going to be some broader ideas of, hey, we need to work on healthcare, and we have these, three or four things. But I think the candidates are really going to be determined by how progressive they need to be for their constituency, which I think is going to be a good thing, Mike. I think getting back to representing your constituency well and not
Yeah.
representing a party ideology all
Yeah.
the time
Yeah.
is going to be important. Um, and so I hope that that's kind of the way it goes, and I hope the DNC sees that and follows suit and kind of champions that cause. Mamdani is very popular in New York, not going to be as popular in Dallas. You know,
Yeah, that's okay.
um, but it's fine. It's a very large country. There's a lot of different cultures. There's a lot of different ideals out there, and there's a lot of different towns. Don't all operate the same. Communities don't all operate the same. They need different things. So I think that is going to be the win for the Democrats for the midterm. Is that there will be uh, some individuality to the candidates, where it won't be just the same cookie cutter candidate, which I think is good. I think that's going to be the strength of it. People identifying what their constituents want.
I just got noticed there's going to be 60 protests this weekend in California identified already.
Yeah,
It's a big
yeah,
number.
and they will all be very large. I bet.
I bet they're all going to be pretty big. I think people are ready to go out. Weather should be good in most of the state. The rains are over. The gloominess has been gone. We've had a tough month here in the state for us by California standards, right? Like that's tough for us. But look, let me say this, especially to people listening too, to follow up on what Robert was saying. If you're ever thinking about running for office, and I don't care if it's for water district or like a cemetery board or mosquito abatement, like go win, because the size and the breadth of the win from the, congressional seats all the way down to the local level, those can be devastating long term for a party when, the Republicans that have picked up some of these seats over the years lose, because they lose their bench, they lose endorsers, they lose organizational capacity. It's really, really important. So if you're thinking about running, um, do it. Do it. Just organize in every state, the reddest of red states, the bluest of blue states. Like, that activism that's the rejuvenating force that democracy needs. So if you want to be engaged, obviously, protest, obviously write your members of Congress and state house, your city council members, obviously get out there and work and volunteer, do lit drops, knock on doors, organize your neighbors, but also consider running for office. Also consider running for office. And I'll give you another tactical reason why too, is I wrote a piece on commemorating January the 6th. A big part of remembering what January 6th was government offices formally taking positions as a day of commemoration. Have your local city council pass a resolution commemorating January 6th as a day of remembrance. That's official record. That's history. The more jurisdictions that do that, Congress certainly isn't going to do it at the moment. Right? You may live in a red state. The legislature is not gonna do it, but your town council can absolutely do it. City can do it, and that is becomes when historians look back at this era, when people are trying to rewrite history in front of our eyes, that's a statement about, making history and providing those breadcrumbs to telling the story of who we were and who was fighting and what that meant. So, don't mean to be too, neither too in the weeds or too sweeping and epic about it, but this stuff matters at the bottom up. That's that's the basis of this whole damn thing.
There were 600,000 uncontested races in the United States in 24.
A lot of these you could just put your name on the ballot and you win.
Yeah. Um, and look, Moms for Liberty has done an incredible job of having somebody to put in every single seat that's available. And that's how they've taken over school boards and city councils. And
That's how you get books banned and vaccine opposition. If you let the crazy be the only one voice out there, that's what's going to happen.
um, so, yeah, it's, you know, I take all of this stuff very seriously, and Mike, you do too. It's hard to get people excited about city council races or school board races, but those are the ones that affect you most directly.
Doesn't
Um,
it? That's what it's all about. It was all predicated on the strength of the town hall, man. That's the Dokeville.
um, what do you think? What are you looking at? What do you see as the strength or weakness of the Democrat Party or the I won't say the party because we all know what the what those are. Where do you see the wins coming um,
I think the
for
winds are
Democrat
blowing.
candidates?
I think it's going to be a very, very good year. Again, it's January. We'll check in a lot over the course of the year, and there'll be a lot of better polling data than the off year. But and I do believe in polls. I look at them for a living. But the fundamentals of this election cycle are sizing up to be the strongest I've seen in there may be two election cycles that I can recall in my adult life that are going to be as strong as what I think it will be for the Democrats. So we'll see how it plays out. November's a long ways away, but Donald Trump and the Republicans and their actions have become the unifying principle. I think we'd all like to see more than that, but for the moment, that will be sufficient. And that's a big part of nations and countries in crisis, especially our own history, which is you just need enough to get over to majority for the moment. Like, focus on that battle first, Mike, and then there will be plenty of time afterwards to do a lot more soul searching, because if you do a lot of that soul and look, 2025 to me was a big missed opportunity to do a lot of that soul searching. I wish the Democrats would have done a little bit more. But Trump's actions have created this crisis where that may be just a luxury. Like, we just got to get rid of these guys first,
Yeah.
and then have that discussion. And I think that's kind of where I've clicked to, and just looking at what happened with the election results in 2025 is I think people are just like, I mean, I don't care what you vote for as long as you're against those guys. I'm not ready for an ideological battle right now. The bigger fight is the one in front of us. And I think that sentiment is what's going to drive the Democrats to considerable victories, considerable sweeps in the November elections. And then, this is getting ahead of myself, but I just know how the ebbs and flow of campaigns is, that fighting, that infighting in the Democratic Party, and the likelihood that Trump will be impeached, and there will certainly be investigations. I think the base is going to demand that stuff. That probably strengthens the Republicans' hand in 2028, but that doesn't mean I'm predicting anything. I'm just looking at the natural ebb and flow of these things, and I don't want anybody thinking that you should be defeated by that because or I'm predicting anything because I'm certainly not. I'm not predicting, when spring this year is coming, let alone am I predicting, the presidential campaign 3 years out. So, I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, I mean, it does. I think that so much of it will be dependent on the policy vacuum that exists. Uh, I mean, I don't think that there is a serious political contributor in the country that doesn't understand that there's going to be a 25 seat pickup in the House, and then maybe 2, 3 Senate seats, depending on how bad this gets before election. I mean, it could be worse, but or not worse, better for us, worse for them. I I think that is a cakewalk, but the policy that fills in that space and does the real work once it's there, is going to be what matters, and that's what's going to drive 28. Um, will be how well they carry the ball once they get it,
That's how I see it.
um,
I
and
do
how
wish.
much
Yeah.
emphasis they put on. I know that it's going to feel very, very good to indict people or to prosecute and to go through the process of putting people in. I know that that's going to feel very, very good. But my hope is that we get back to the business of legislating
Governing.
for the people first
Yeah.
while we're doing the other, and that it's not just a div- whatever happens with the Trump thing is going to be a divisional thing continued. They should go to jail. There's probably not much argument with that, but I think that the Democrats are going to have to get in there and start to govern at the same time or first, um, and
They've
start.
gotta have a policy agenda that people can rally around and say, "This is what we're for as a defining feature."
You
And
can't.
it's gotta be results based. You gotta make a difference in people's lives.
It can't just be anti-Trump.
Can't just be anti-Trump.
Um, so yeah,
Robert,
that's what I
I
think I'm at.
I hate to do this. I'm down to 3% and my battery's upstairs.
No worries, man. Let's get together soon. I'll send you over this piece when I get done
Yeah.
writing it, and
I
we'll
I I wanna see that, and we'll keep chatting by text. I wanna know more about what's going on and, how I
yeah,
can help. But thank you for being there. Thanks for
yeah,
reporting back, and we're looking forward to what you're writing.
yeah, man. I appreciate it.
And be safe. Be safe out there. Keep your wits
I'm
about you.
taking every precaution I can. I don't get mixed up in
Don't do it.
the other stuff. So
And just remember, I mean, these things that you get in the middle of it without even noticing it. So just
yeah,
be vigilant. Pay attention.
so I've stayed. I've participated, in the stuff that is good to participate in, and stayed away from uh, any of the direct action kind of thing. Because I mean, I do have kids and stuff at home. Like I'm not trying to, you know, I don't think all of that is necessary every time for everybody. So yeah, I just want to get a feel for it, and I think that the overall sense is very, very good. It's very positive. So uh, anyway, thanks everybody for listening to us ramble for a little bit. But I had a
Thanks for
good time
joining us
as
again.
always.
Makes my week good work, man. We'll do it again
Hey,
next Thursday.
yeah, I'll talk to you soon. I'll text you here in just a bit.
All right, buddy.
All right, bye.
Bye.